battle for control of the internet is on, and it's no game. Under attack, Microsoft, the giant corporation whose computer operating systems dominate the entire market. Venture capitalist Derek Prudian.
As one person put it to me, Microsoft's not just the biggest fish in the sea, they're the water we swim in.
Prudian is CEO of Zip2, a California company that provides online access to information about cities around the country. Everything from where to eat to how to get around.
You imagine the possibilities, but...
The company's chief engineer and founder is 27-year-old Elon Musk. And how old were you when you started this company, or what became this company?
23.
It's a classic Silicon Valley story. Before there was the vintage Jaguar, the six-figure salary, the cute dog, and the nice house to share with the pretty girlfriend, there was the $200 a month office with the leaky roof.
It was just the nastiest place you can imagine.
And you lived in it too?
And I lived in it too and showered at the YMCA.
Now Musk has his own computer command center, and his business is thriving. To his delight, Microsoft has tried and so far failed to get a hold in Zip2's market. You always keep an eye on them, though.
You bet.
And everyone in Silicon Valley is keeping an eye on the battleground a continent away at the federal courthouse in Washington. It's here where it will be decided whether Microsoft and its founder, Bill Gates,
I don't remember sending it.
are our generation's equivalent of John D. Rockefeller and his Standard Oil, the monopoly the government broke up in a landmark case that really started antitrust enforcement at the dawn of the century. Leading the charge this time is the Justice Department's chief trust buster, Joel Klein. He claims Microsoft has bullied and intimidated a wide array of high-tech firms.
We will show a significant effort to stifle competition, harm consumers, and prevent the market from having people compete on the merits.
Defending Microsoft, attorney Bill Newcomb.
Show that Microsoft is a vigorous but a very fair competitor, and that as a result of our competition and our innovation, customers have benefited by getting better technology quicker and at lower prices.
In an important example, Microsoft did streamline things for consumers by adding, for free, its browser, known as Internet Explorer, to its popular Windows operating system. The browser is basically a navigation system that helps you connect with the information you want on the internet. But the government complains that by bundling or tying its browser to its other products, Microsoft denied consumers a choice and unfairly blocked another company, Netscape, from marketing its own browser.
Microsoft should not be allowed to own the browser market. If they do that, then they will own the gateway to the internet for every consumer, and that is almost certainly likely to result in a less valuable experience for the consumer.
Not everyone agrees.
If you're not willing to engage in competition, why are you in Silicon Valley?
T.J. Rogers, founder and CEO of Cypress Semiconductors.
The man who started Netscape became multi-10 millionaires overnight, and now they're whining and crying because Microsoft has the force and just went whack and said, here it is, a better software package, not just a browser, but everything you want, guaranteed to work in one package, running on your computer, $99. What do you think?
Well, some competitors think Microsoft's tactics are unfair.
Show me the money! Everybody yell, show me the money!
Peter Doherty owns Digital Bitcasting, a small Massachusetts company that makes software that channels audio and video onto the computer screen. There are some people out there who paint Microsoft as sort of a benevolent dictator. Why do you think that is?
The man who runs the company sets the tone for the company, and I think that's true in most companies.
What do you think the tone is of that company?
I think it's an extremely aggressive, intelligent. So I think the reality is, in regards to Microsoft, that they're not a benevolent company.
Doherty has felt the brunt of Microsoft competition.
Microsoft comes along and they have the Windows Media Player, and it It's what's called overwriting our technology, so you can no longer use our technology.
So,
So-
Microsoft's software, once it was loaded on, basically disabled your technology or overrode it.
Exactly.
Why would the consumer care?
An end user has paid for our software. They're used to using it. They should have the right to be able to use it.
Some serious math involved in that.
In fact, Doherty has now channeled his business into areas that don't directly compete with Microsoft. And though he generally dislikes government intervention, he thinks it may be needed to control Microsoft.
They're the killer whale in our business. So I do think the government is going to have to be involved.
A successful attack on Microsoft by the government says improving your products, making things better, making them cheaper is against the law. And I think that's immoral and un-American.
Back in 1969, the Justice Department filed another big antitrust suit that rocked the computer industry. Then the target was IBM. The case dragged on for 13 years until the government finally dropped it. And there's one thing that Peter Doherty and T.J. Rogers do agree on, that even without government intervention, like IBM, Microsoft could still eventually fall of its own weight.
IBM was large. Some people thought they were arrogant, but what happened was, for example, IBM brought out the personal computer. And then other companies like Apple Computer, for example, said, we have a better idea, we'll make it more user-friendly. And now today, IBM, instead of owning the personal computer industry, is one of the players, not even the leading one or number one or number two.
We certainly hope to increase the
There are so many scenarios of how the Microsoft case could conclude that none of the experts will predict an outcome. And many in the scrappy computer industry that prides itself on rewarding innovation say they haven't chosen sides in the U.S. versus Microsoft battle. Derek Prudian.
It's a delicate ecosystem. The government could, with too heavy-handed an approach, create barriers or stifle that climate. Similarly, a large player like Microsoft, if it was too heavy-handed, could also stymie that environment.
And so, in the world of Bill Gates, Peter Doherty, T.J. Rogers, and young Elon Musk, there is a brooding anxiety over the landmark trial that will map out the rules of the road to the internet. Take us back to when you really started all of this.
Well, that was the summer of '95. I had no money whatsoever. I was working, doing research in Silicon Valley on a completely different subject and trying to start this company at the same time. And when it came time to decide, do I want to do graduate studies or do I want to start this company, and I decided to start the company, I had no money. As a graduate student, I would have received a scholarship and a stipend and so forth. In starting the company, I had nothing. I had no income source. So we found that an office was actually cheaper than an apartment in Silicon Valley. So we got this dinky little office that had a leaky roof. It was just the nastiest place you can imagine.
And you lived in it too?
And I lived in it too and showered at the YMCA. This lasted for about 3 or 4 months. And the reason we chose this office, in addition to it being really cheap, was that there was an internet service provider on the floor below. So we were able to get really cheap internet access by drilling a hole in the floor and connecting to their server directly.
You know, this industry is so young, and we don't really know where it's going. But what do you see as the future of the internet?
I think the internet is the superset of all media. It is the be-all and end-all of media. One will see print, broadcast, arguably radio, essentially all media folding into the internet. And what the internet amounts to is it's the first two-way communication medium that is intelligent. It allows consumers to choose what they want to see, when they want to see it, and whether that be radio, whether that be print, whether that be television, broadcast. I think it's going to revolutionize all traditional media.
Later this week, SpaceX will launch a cargo rocket to the International Space Station. And on board will be an image honoring the 50th anniversary of Apollo 11's mission to the moon. Rocket man Elon Musk is the founder of SpaceX, and he's a big fan of the lunar landing and of landing on other places, too. He talks with Time magazine editor-at-large, Jeffrey Kluger.
It was 50 years ago, on July 20th, 1969.
I'm at the foot of the ladder.
When Apollo 11 commander Neil Armstrong took his giant leap.
That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
And became the first person to walk on the moon.
About a 3-footer.
19 minutes later, lunar module pilot Buzz Aldrin joined him on the lunar surface.
Beautiful view. Isn't that something?
Sparking the imaginations of countless explorers and of one little boy in South Africa.
You came along 2 years after Apollo 11, and yet space seems to be in your marrow.
Apollo 11 landing on the moon was probably the most inspiring thing in history. It certainly inspired me. I'm not sure SpaceX would exist if not for Apollo 11.
Elon Musk is the founder, CEO, and lead designer of SpaceX, short for Space Exploration Technologies. His privately held company makes rockets and spacecraft.
I kept expecting that we would continue beyond Apollo 11, that we would have a base on the moon, that we would be sending people to Mars. And here we are in 2019. The United States actually does not yet have the ability to send people even to low Earth orbit.
Which is why SpaceX is one of the companies that delivers cargo to the International Space Station, while the Russians transport crews. That's because NASA's space shuttle program ended in 2011.
It may be sad about the future. You know, when you get up in the morning, what fires you up? Like, what gets you excited about being alive?
Here at SpaceX headquarters in the Los Angeles suburb of Hawthorne, what excites this 48-year-old billionaire is the idea that lots of human beings might one day live on other planets, especially Mars.
One of the sweetest spots in all the world for people who love space is pad 39A.
It's the best pad.
Best pad.
T-minus 15 seconds. Guidance
It's the pad that sent Apollo 11 to the moon.
We have a liftoff.
Many of NASA's most memorable missions began here as well. Hallowed ground at the Kennedy Space Center in Florida.
You're looking at a live view of the Falcon Heavy on historic launch pad 39A.
I can't believe we get to use this pad.
And that's my question.
An insane honor.
What does that feel like?
We're not worthy.
To be sure, since its founding in 2002, SpaceX has had many achievements. It's the first private company to launch, orbit, and recover a spacecraft. And watch its historic recovery of an orbital rocket's first stage landing safely on an ocean platform.
And Falcon has cleared the tower.
There have also been a number of setbacks along the way. Musk often uses the expression rapid reusability. Why, he argues, should rockets make only one trip?
Like an aircraft. Like when an aircraft lands, you only expect to refuel it, maybe replace water and food.
Clean out the
clean it out.
Yeah,
exactly. It's minor. The normal expectation is that you can refly the plane very rapidly. You can turn around in an hour and fly somewhere else. This is what needs to happen with rockets.
Elon Musk isn't the only billionaire thinking big.
Release.
Richard Branson's Virgin Galactic will offer commercial space flights for tourists. And Amazon's Jeff Bezos has founded Blue Origin in hopes of building space colonies.
I think it's good what Jeff Bezos is doing with Blue Origin. Occasionally I'll rib him a little bit, but I think it's good what he's doing.
And Musk isn't only thinking big, he's thinking fast. Regular trips to the space station?
To launch a crew to the space station?
Crew to the space.
My guess is About 6 months.
Visiting the moon?
Well, this is going to sound pretty crazy, but certainly with an uncrewed vehicle, I believe we could land on the moon in 2 years.
But always on his horizon, the planet Mars.
Sending crews to Mars in 4 years, I think that sounds pretty doable. Like internally, we would aim for two years, and then reality might be 4.
One day, he even imagined cities on the red planet.
To have a self-sustaining city on Mars, now you're going to say, like, okay, how are you going to get 1 million tons to Mars? Literally, 1 million tons.
And that's some serious payload.
That's the,
In the long run, there's no telling what lies ahead for inhabitants of our planet Earth. But Elon Musk says he wants humanity to survive, wherever we make our home.
You want to believe that we're going to be out there among the stars, and that's the thing that, I mean, I get really excited about that kind of future. I think most people do.
One way to increase your net worth is to use the internet for all it's worth. Everywhere you look, computer-savvy people are doing just that, many of them astonishingly young. Our cover story is reported now by David Pogue of the New York Times.
Remember that old New Yorker cartoon? On the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. But in the real world, some of the internet's most influential and successful forces have their own version of that line. On the internet, nobody knows you're a teenager.
I started Netscape when I was 14. Basically, I had an internship there.
Meet Blake Ross. By the ripe old age of 19, he had co-written a new web browser called Firefox. It's so good, 50 million people installed it in its first 6 months. And it stole 10% of the market away from Microsoft's browser, Internet Explorer.
We want you to start up the web browser and be able to surf the web without worrying about spyware, without worrying about viruses, without worrying about pop-up ads.
Firefox is free, but 21-year-old Mark Zuckerberg turned his little web experiment into a very big business. It's called thefacebook.com, and it's like no college directory you've ever seen.
For example, you can take a person and look them up, and you can get a picture of how they'd like to portray themselves in addition to, say, the courses that they're taking, sports teams, clubs that they're a part of, and who their friends are at the school. But I think that there's a lot of times where people will just go out, meet someone, say, okay, I don't know that much about this person, and they'll go back to their room and do what people call Facebook them, which is go on the Facebook and look them up just to kind of see the snapshot of what they have.
In less than 1 year, the Facebook.com has become an addictive part of everyday college life.
We've gone from having around 150,000 people in the fall to right around 3 million now. So it's pretty cool.
But not as cool as this, $13 million of investment capital.
we get a lot of feedback saying like how much people love the site. I get a couple of marriage proposals each day.
32.
Robin Liss is a junior at Tufts University. She runs camcorderinfo.com, the internet's #1 source of camcorder information and reviews. She posted her first article online when she was 10.
I was playing around with my mom's huge Panasonic VHS camcorder making claymation videos. I wrote an article on how to make a video for under $100, and like 70 people read it, and I was like, whoa, this is the coolest thing ever.
Her audience is slightly bigger today.
Camcorderinfo.com is the largest camcorder review publication in the United States, online or off. We reach about 300,000 people every single month.
Finally, meet Wayne Chang. He's the creator of i2Hub, a super high-speed communications network that lets college students across the country collaborate and share computer files.
In March, over 8 million hours were spent on i2Hub by students across the nation. About 1,800 schools have requested to join the network.
4 internet pioneers, each of whom began changing the face of online business and culture when most teenagers were just happy to get their driver's licenses. How did they do it? Rule number 1, get an early start.
At the age of 7, I got my first computer.
When i2Hub's Wayne Chang immigrated from Taiwan, he could barely speak English.
And the fact that I had a language limitation at the time prohibited me from basically making friends easily. So that means I had a lot of time on the computer. And at the age of 11, I got my first job with a corporation in California.
I got my first computer when I was, I guess, around 6th grade. And within weeks of getting it, I was like, all right, I want to learn how to program. This is pretty sweet.
Rule number 2, exploit the anonymity of the internet.
Between email and the phone and a website, no one has to know how old I am. And what it allowed me to do, I think, is develop credibility based on our product alone.
I think the internet is really the great equalizer. It really levels the playing field. It doesn't matter if it came from a 50-year-old experienced software developer in Redmond or it came from a 19-year-old kid in California. If it's good software, people will use it. So there's nothing stopping people.
Dustin just launched 100 schools a couple of days ago, so he's passed out. But
Rule number 3, get good help.
dude, what's up? Dude, you're on TV.
For the Facebook's Mark Zuckerberg, that would be his Harvard roommate, Dustin.
So he kind of took it on himself to learn programming, and so he went home for the weekend, came back, and was like, all right, I'm ready to go.
Blake Ross led a slightly bigger team for Firefox, tens of thousands of volunteers working together as part of what's called the open source movement.
And basically what this means is that people in Europe can be coordinating with people in the United States, can be coordinating with people in Africa, all putting the user input into this browser. They can submit actual code to improve the product. It's really a global effort.
Rule number 4, exploit your youth.
The way that I can be unique is by kind of just being creative and kind of reveling in being young and just being a little crazy. So, for example, there's this feature called poking where you just go to someone's profile and you could poke the person. And like, what does that do? Nothing. It sends them a message. It's like, you've been poked. You know, like, who cares? You know, I mean, it's like I thought about it when I was drunk or something, you know, and like people really like poking each other for some reason that, you know, I don't think anyone can really explain.
And finally, rule number 5, be willing to make some sacrifices. How much time do you actually get to spend in this bed?
I get something like 5 or 6 hours a night. I generally try to have breakfast and then go to sleep and wake up around noon.
If you give up social life for the time to work, and then you go to bed at 2, and you wake up 4 hours later to go back to school.
I mean, I think the thing I'd sacrifice more than anything else is sleep.
I didn't sleep much either, and my girlfriend is no longer my girlfriend. But,
So what drives these young geniuses to sacrifice so much? Sometimes it's money. Now, I read in an interview where you have a goal to become a millionaire by 26. How's that going?
It's going actually pretty well. The actual goal is 24.
I missed class. Did he get...
Sometimes it's the chance to learn while the consequences are still small.
Yeah, you can write on whatever you want.
Do you have the assignment?
There's no assignment.
I'm not an expert at anything. I mean, I'm only 20, so I think what it's allowed me to do is really kind of take a educational approach to the whole thing and grow.
And sometimes it's the chance to change the world.
I'm not making a dime off Firefox, but it's enough for me to get an email from a grandfather in Mississippi telling me that he can finally get on the web and communicate with his grandchildren.
In the short term, 3 of these 4 whiz kids have taken leaves of absence from college to fast-track their projects. But where will they be in the long term? Mark Zuckerberg will probably be right where he is now.
the bigger it gets, the more people we get to interact with, and that's really cool too.
Wayne Chang's I2 Hub project has grown so big that it's created a problem. Students are using his high-speed network to swap movies and music.
The recording industry is worried, so is the motion pictures industry. They've sued about 405 students.
But he says he has a solution. It's still secret at this point, but he says it could change the landscape even more profoundly.
What we'll do, it'll solve the problem of lawsuits. Basically, the entertainment industry as a whole will be very happy, and so will the students.
So this is our office.
Robin Liss has launched a second website called digitalcamerainfo.com, and she plans to launch similar sites for printers and cell phones. But for her, all of this is still just a rite of passage.
I hope to move into the political or public policy sphere where I can help improve people's lives through government.
And what about Blake Ross, the father of Firefox?
I think I've got a couple more years in me in the computer industry. I've actually had these kind of secret ambitions that I want to write either films or novels. So I think life's too short to do anything for too long.
That may be a sound philosophy. After all, no matter how young you are now, there's always somebody younger.
The next generation are these kids that have grown up on the internet, that are turning in their homework via email in first grade. I'm actually frightened to see what they come up with. I really think age is just an illusion. I think that with the internet, people can do absolutely anything they want.
Dare we come in here? Now this does look like a place where a few guys live.
Oh yeah, for sure, 100%. I sleep right there.
Yours
I sleep over here.
You gave up Harvard for this?
Yeah, there's no place I'd rather be.
When brothers Kieran and Rory O'Reilly were both accepted to Harvard, their parents marked the accomplishment with new license plates. And those license plates say?
2 in Harvard, and then Harvard 2. They might change it to 2 dropouts, to be determined.
They both quit Harvard as undergrads 2 years ago. They were just 18 and 19 when they moved to San Francisco with big hopes and almost nothing else.
We moved around a bunch, 3 bags of clothes. Every day we would take it, move from hotel to hotel.
I remember our bank account was always negative $66 because that's the overdraft fee.
You're always broke.
Always.
Yeah.
They're now living in their office.
Every single day our mom tries to call us or send food.
They've created a website, gifs.com, a tool for re-editing videos you find online.
17 million people in the past month have used gifs.com.
The O'Reillys are on a path made famous by some of the tech industry's biggest names: Jobs, Gates, Zuckerberg.
People that drop out of Harvard, maybe the Bill Gates of the world, the Zuckerbergs, they're the people that are really changing the entire world, in my opinion. Yeah, I'm glad to be a part of that.
The O'Reillys are part of that, partly because Peter Thiel, one of the billionaire founders of PayPal, gave them $100,000 each. Thiel started his surprising giveaway 5 years ago, offering $100,000 to kids who quit college to build new things. What are you encouraging?
If you have a great idea, the time to pursue it is now.
Jack Abraham is executive director of the Thiel Fellowship, which distributes the money to 20 new dropouts each year.
We also hope to show society that this is an alternate path that people can and should consider and take.
Abraham says 105 current and former Thiel Fellows have created over 1,000 jobs and raised $330 million from investors. Only 8 have returned to college.
I'd say it's something that we should keep an eye on.
For sure.
Yeah.
The selection committee is now sorting through 5,000 applications for this year's 20 fellowships. Most of the applicants would have much better odds getting into the Ivy League.
It breaks my heart when some of the most promising students don't fulfill their potential because they're chasing rainbows.
Vivek Wadhwa, a fellow at Stanford University, has been a critic of the Thiel Fellowship from the beginning.
It's like what happens in Hollywood. You have tens of thousands of young people flocking to Hollywood thinking that they're going to become a Brad Pitt or an Angelina Jolie. They don't. They don't become billionaires. There haven't been many Mark Zuckerbergs after Mark Zuckerberg achieved success.
And Wadhwa says there is little evidence the Thiel dropouts are doing much that isn't already being done in Silicon Valley.
Everyone does the same thing. It's social media, it's photo sharing apps. Today it's sharing economy. It's Me Too, more of the same.
But 19-year-old Conrad Kramer and 21-year-old Ari Weinstein were convinced they had a new idea. So when they were awarded Thiel Fellowships in 2014, they both walked away from MIT to work full-time on their app called Workflow.
There are some opportunities that come up that you would regret turning down, so Workflow is definitely one of those.
When Workflow launched, it was the #1 bestseller on Apple's App Store and has since won several awards.
It's kind of like making your own apps that save you time.
They've just hired their newest employee, Tim Shaw, a graduate of Stanford's business and law schools and an Army vet. He's 33 years old and says he doesn't mind taking orders from a teenage boss.
I'm learning so much because they have such a wealth of experience despite their age. In Silicon Valley, it's about meritocracy of ideas. And so if you have a good idea, everyone's always receptive to listening to it.
Zach Latta found many people were willing to listen, leaving high school to move to San Francisco on his own to start a nonprofit called Hack Club.
I first moved here when I was 16, and I showed up at a gym one day with some friends, and they turned me away at the door because I had to be 18.
Now he is 18 and works full-time helping high school students learn to code.
I feel challenged in every single day, and I think I'm learning as much as I've ever been, while being happy.
For now, these wannabe tech titans live modestly in homes they share with several others, or in offices that also provide a place to sleep. Instead of meals, some drink Soylent, Silicon Valley's version of fast food. It apparently contains all the nutrients necessary to stay alive in a bottle. This is breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Yeah, breakfast, lunch, snack, dinner.
They are building their companies with money from investors who seem to care little whether they graduated from college.
It's actually kind of a badge of honor here, dropping out.
So 23-year-old Stacy Ferreira dropped out of New York University twice. The first time, she saw a tweet from Richard Branson offering to meet anyone who gave $2,000 to his charity. She borrowed the money and met him. She was 18 and starting her first business.
And make a long story short, he and two of his buddies ended up investing $1.2 million in our business that summer.
2 years later, she sold that company for a hefty profit and returned to NYU, but then had another big idea that couldn't wait.
If you can create your own job, why wouldn't you just do that and not get stuck paying student loans for the rest of your life?
Instead of student loans, she has $100,000 from Peter Thiel. She's working on an app called Forge that aims to create an on-demand marketplace for hourly workers. She's hoping that dropping out of NYU again will pay off again. Is there a lesson in your story for other young people?
Yeah, I think the biggest lesson to learn is just take risks.
What's the worst that can happen to you when you take the risk?
For me, the worst that can happen is I move home and sleep on my parents' couch for a couple months until I figure it out.
My brother and I, we pay tuition at this school. We carry a 3.9 GPA at this school. We won trophies for this school, and we'll be rowing in the Olympics for this school. I want a meeting with the goddamn president of this school.
The twins you may remember from that movie, The Social Network, are in real life making a fortune, doubling down on an internet investment that, let's just say, defies an easy explanation. Contributor Nicholas Thompson, who's also editor-in-chief of Wired magazine, helps make sense of it.
Thank you so much. Their names are Cameron and Tyler Winklevoss, identical twins and Olympic athletes.
Mark?
Famously portrayed in the film The Social Network.
Cameron Winklevoss. Hi. Tyler Winklevoss. You guys related? It's good. Funny. I've never heard that before.
As a privileged pair of handsome Harvard jocks who believe Mark Zuckerberg stole their idea for Facebook.
He stole our website.
Those characters are interesting, but they're not really us.
They were a bit stiff and maybe not full-dimensional.
The Winklevoss twins are back in the spotlight again.
We probably bought our first Bitcoin within a block of here.
This time, as very successful investors in Bitcoin, having turned their $65 million Facebook settlement into many hundreds of millions of dollars.
If you believe that Bitcoin is the beginning of the internet of money, you can actually buy a piece of it. Anybody in the world can. And there's tons of people who have made a lot buying a piece of that future.
And there's a nearly equal amount who have lost a lot.
Ben Mesrick wrote the book that The Social Network was based on. A decade later, news that the Winklevoss twins had gambled big and won, investing in Bitcoin, got his attention.
It made me start to think that they weren't at the helm of two revolutions by accident.
For him, the Winklevosses' second act was too good to pass up.
They're Greek gods, essentially. They've got everything anyone could think one would need. Why don't they just roll off into the sunset?
Indeed, the Winklevi did seem to have everything. Pretty girls, private planes, invitations to all the best parties. Why did two guys, Olympic athletes raised in Greenwich, Connecticut, educated at Harvard and Oxford, gamble it all on something as slippery and nearly incomprehensible as Bitcoin? As Ben Mesrick sees it, because of Mark Zuckerberg and Facebook, all over again.
They go out to Silicon Valley to become venture capitalists, and nobody wants their money because everyone's end game is to sell your company to Facebook. Right. And because Zuckerberg hates the Winklevoss twins so much, that becomes an impossibility. So they head to Ibiza, as one does, right? Someone walks up to them and pitches the idea of Bitcoin.
Yes, the Mediterranean island of Ibiza, playground of the rich and famous. The year is 2012. Set the scene. Where exactly are you?
During the day.
Shorts or pants?
Probably shorts. It's the beach.
So, you're in Ibiza. Somebody tells you about this thing. Currency that can be sent like email. It's all based on math. You don't have to trust a banker or a president. You just have to trust the code. And then you make a big decision, which is to buy 1% of all of the Bitcoins in the world.
You know, some people, they might dive off a diving board. I think in this case, we took a cannonball off the diving
Both of
board.
you at the same
Yeah.
time.
Yeah.
What was the price then?
I think our first Bitcoin was in the high single digits.
That's $8 or $9 a coin. It's now trading about $9,000, though that is down from $20,000 at its peak. And I should say, I don't invest in it, and I would tell my mom not to invest in it either.
Our thesis at the time was Bitcoin's going to disrupt gold. And gold has a market cap of $7 trillion today. So if Bitcoin's going to be worth $7 trillion or more, this seems like a cheap asset.
A cheap asset being sold on a place where people sell magic cards,
Right.
as opposed to in a bank.
It was complete Wild West.
The Wild West. Currency free of government oversight or regulation. The perfect place for all kinds of illicit behavior.
It's a bunch of people who are anarchists, who want to smash the state, whose identities aren't known, who are selling drugs, right? Your early business partner goes to jail for multiple years.
That's exactly what informed us on what not to do and what had to change.
You say you still don't understand Bitcoin? Don't worry. You're not alone.
It's hard to digest it all at once.
Let's take some bites and let's digest them.
Yeah.
So, when you literally buy a Bitcoin, what have you bought?
You're buying a piece in the Bitcoin ledger that represents a fixed digital asset. So it's like buying a bar of gold, but there's no physical component to it.
So you're buying a bar of gold, but it's not a bar of gold, it's just a bunch of numbers. So there's a giant ledger.
Right.
It's worth
Yep.
a certain amount of money that changes over time.
Exactly.
The twins point out that most people don't know how the internet works, but we all use it.
This is money that works like your email, and that was the aha moment for us.
Money that works like your email, easy to use, fast. Sounds pretty great, doesn't it?
I think I turned to Tyler and said, hey, this is either the next big thing or total BS.
Was there a moment in the Wild West period where you guys looked at each other and said, what are we doing? Let's just get out and go back to what most of the people from Greenwich and Harvard are doing, which is working at a hedge fund instead of betting on this crazy stuff.
So I think instead of looking at it and saying, let's get out, we said, let's get in more. And that's when we started to found Gemini.
You guys bought coffee with the app, right?
Yeah, we literally walked into a Starbucks.
Getting the average person excited about Bitcoin is one of the aims of Gemini, the cryptocurrency exchange the brothers run.
They asked, is it Apple Pay? And I was like, no, it's better.
Their offices occupy 50,000 square feet on New York's Park Avenue South, where some 200 employees are working hard to make Bitcoin as easy to buy and sell as possible.
So let's buy some Bitcoin.
All right, let's do it.
So open up my phone.
And though there are other Bitcoin exchanges with more traffic than Gemini, the brothers hope their app will encourage regular people to get their feet wet.
Bitcoin looks like it's up 1% today. Let's buy it. I'll buy $10 Bitcoin. Continue, swipe up to place order. All right,
Look at that.
I got some Bitcoin. All right, let's sell this. Sell my max.
Of course, there are lots of risks
Sold it for
and
$7.92.
fees.
Man, I lost $2.08 with you guys.
You should have helped.
Later this week, the twins' old nemesis, Facebook, will announce a cryptocurrency launch of its own called Libra.
Do you feel like they're copying you?
I don't know, we haven't seen what they're doing.
The brothers say they're not worried.
There's so much pie to grow. I mean, at this point, we need to be frenemies.
But Facebook has entered a lot of markets with pie to grow, and usually it eats the pie.
I think this pie is different.
One possible scenario with Facebook would be they come in and they change things in a way that hurts Gemini, but that also validates things and drives the price of Bitcoin way up. So you guys lose your company, but make a ton more money. How does that feel?
We'll have to. We should hire you to come in and wargame with us.
As to how it's all going to play out, we may just have to wait for the next movie.
'Tis the season to shop from the safety of your couch for that perfect holiday gift. And Nancy Giles has a notion of just where that search might begin.
Because of COVID-19, a lot of people are staying at home buying things online. And a lot of people are in their homes making things to sell. That's a perfect situation for Etsy. an e-commerce website where 70 million people shop for bathtub toys, mailboxes, pet costumes, vintage wedding dresses, and candles.
I'll make probably about 30 to 50 candles a day because everything that we have, we make to order.
Amberly Isabella makes candles in her basement in New York's Hudson Valley.
And you want to make sure that you pour everything really slow.
It was all her mom's idea. Amberly and Elizabeth had never tried this before.
So then she bought all the candle supplies and we learned how to make candles off of YouTube.
Yeah, there's an awful lot of fails before you get it right.
But they did get it right.
So this is a little bit of the tedious process.
And now they create 125 different soy-based candles that celebrate birth months, states, and cities.
Each individual candle not only has its own story, but it's actually got its own particular scent.
And that's why the 5-year-old company is called Scripted Fragrance. Their dog candles are very popular. Does that candle smell like a dog?
That is a popular misconception.
I happen to love beagles. And there's a candle with a scent that captures the essence of beagle. A heartwarming blend of friendliness and curiosity with an endless supply of love and energy.
And it's actually one of our strongest scents because they have one of the loudest barks.
And like thousands of Etsy sellers, they turned what began as a side interest into full-time jobs.
There are over 3 million sellers selling on Etsy, and they're selling over 75 million items.
And literally, people can sell anything.
Anything that they've made themselves or designed. You can buy everything from the cushion to the couch on Etsy.
Josh Silverman is Etsy's chief executive officer, and his company's stock is one of the top performers this year, surging 260%. Silverman paid attention last April when the Centers for Disease Control advised Americans to start wearing masks.
One of the first things we did is we put out an APB calling all sellers. If you have a sewing machine, start making masks. In the second quarter of this year, Etsy sellers sold over $375 million worth of masks.
The masks have saved my business. I will say that, seriously. As I'm making masks, people are asking, well, I want a matching shirt. I want a matching dress.
In his compact Union City, New Jersey studio, Ruben Ruel designs domestic fashions.
Everything that I do is cut, sewn, packed, and shipped right here.
His grandmother in Virginia was a seamstress. Did your grandmother teach you how to sew?
She did not. She was from the old school, so for boys to sew was not something that was, keen to her.
But as a pastor's wife, the first lady of the church, her Sunday best did inspire him.
Seeing her with these elaborate church hats on, and she knew how to pair colors together, and that was also something that inspired me in my own designs.
Ruel studied fashion and came to New York to try to make his name.
And Etsy came along where I told myself, well, I don't have the money to get a PR company to push my brand. I don't have the money to have a showroom. I don't have the money for all this marketing.
But even Beyonce has worn his fashions.
It doesn't always turn over into a financial gain.
Okay.
But I will say it does allow the brand to have credibility. So this is where she had all of her materials and her threads, so I use it in the same manner now.
And his grandmother's thread box watches over everything Ruben Ruel sews.
Just having it reminds me of, a history of women who were creative in my life. And it really reminds me of my grandmother, so I love this box.
Fact is, the personal connection between sellers and buyers is one of the reasons Etsy does so well. Sellers often write personal notes to their clients.
So over the past 12 months, there have been over $7.5 billion of goods bought and sold on Etsy.
And to achieve that strong a brand, the folks at Etsy can be demanding when it comes to how sellers behave. There's a way that Etsy does things, and if you don't do things the Etsy way, they can kind of be punished. I think a lot of it circles around the free shipping aspect.
So every buyer now expects free shipping. And sellers that do incorporate free shipping are promoted more prominently, and that way buyers' expectations are met.
Don't be scared of it. Perfect. Beautiful. That looks great.
Matthew Cummings sells his house-brewed beer in Knoxville, Tennessee, and on Etsy, his hand-blown, remarkably shaped beer glasses.
So if you'll just hold it up to the light and take a look at that, those undulations, you'll get different densities of the beer.
He actually began as a glass-blowing artist, a sculptor, but only so many people could afford his work.
You know, at $6,000 to $14,000, I can't afford my own work. My friends, my family can't afford it.
So, a beer-loving friend suggested he make something that more people could enjoy: glasses. By 2013, he was another Etsy success story.
We were back ordered by 3 or 4 months for like 2 years.
And today, enthusiastic beer drinkers allow Cummings to combine business and art.
Glass has a ton of personality on its own. It's not like you're blowing glass and you're making it do this thing. It's a conversation or a dance with another material that's very mindful. I start to make something and then I'll let the glass decide where we want to go. So these are more like jazz.
His quartet of glassblowers makes 200 glasses a day. What has Etsy meant to your life?
I think Etsy has been life-changing. I mean, it's totally redirected what I've been able to do and expanded what I've even dreamed to accomplish. I mean, it was 100% life-changing.
Okay, that's delicious.
Is that good?
By the way, on Etsy, even the sun has style. And it's for sale.
In this summer of never-ending heat waves and one terrible weather event after another, Barry Peterson is taking us back in time to learn about an unlikely solution to global warming in an equally unlikely place.
Kimmerer is remote, even by Wyoming standards, a 50-mile detour off Interstate 80. Its elevation is actually higher than its population. Tourists stop in to hunt for local fossils. But the best jobs come from different kinds of fossils, fossil fuels. A coal mine and natural gas wells that power 3 electricity plants and employ 450 people. But as fossil fuel use dies out across the U.S., Kimmerer sees good times ahead and could become one of the world's most famous towns, thanks to one of the world's wealthiest men.
Hi. Hi, Mr. Gates. How are you?
Bill Gates and his 17-year-old energy company TerraPower are planning their first cutting-edge nuclear power plant here.
I'm curious why you chose Wyoming, because Wyoming is, in fact, the largest coal-producing state, so you kind of walked into the lion's den on this one.
Wyoming has a lot of transmission because of the coal plants. They're willing to let things go at full speed. There's somewhat of a pro-business atmosphere.
This is James Cashpenny.
J.C. Penney.
Yeah, J.C. Penney. He created J.C. Penney Corporation right from here. It's exciting.
Kimmerer Mayor Bill Tech says his town is no stranger to American entrepreneurs. J.C. Penney opened his first store here in 1902 before going nationwide. Now Kimmerer as a 21st century business hero.
Wyoming is a fairly conservative state. Bill Gates is not a name where I think people would have a lot of praise for in Wyoming because of his stance on phasing out coal and things of that sort, but now he's kind of your local hero.
There are people who absolutely abhor him, but this is what it is. He decided to put money into this. The nuclear, as far as I'm concerned, goes along with his green energy moving forward. And I'm not opposed to that, and I don't think most of the citizens are opposed to something like that.
Solar and wind only work when the weather is right, but nuclear works 24 hours a day without spewing out climate-changing greenhouse gases. It could be in operation as soon as 2030, using a next-generation technology called natrium, which is the Latin word for sodium. Experts say sodium-cooled reactors are 3 times more efficient than traditional water-cooled reactors, which means significantly less nuclear waste.
And so the amount that you're making, per decade is less than the size of a big room. And so the technology for waste disposal, we've had that advance. So that shouldn't be a limiting factor anymore.
The promise of a new plant has bulldozers at work.
We'll cut down this way.
As out-of-town developers like David Jackson think they're building into a boom. The first of 2,000 workers who will construct the plant are already doing site surveys. There will be 300 workers running the plant once it comes online.
There's a lot of big companies coming here. There's a need for the housing, so we jumped right into the market and it was kind of first come, that's who's going to win the game.
Today's plant workers may also win by getting new jobs, says Roger Holt, manager at the coal plant, and Mark Thatcher, a retired coal miner.
This is a new design nuclear reactor, but it still is going to end up generating steam, turning a steam turbine. We're going to have a lot of the same equipment that we use right now to generate power, so a lot of what we do will be transferable.
Does this mean Kimmer is going to have jobs for 50 years?
Yeah, the thing is if you've got 300 primary jobs, it allows gas stations, grocery stores, motels, everything else to be.
Isn't jobs the real answer here, that what you're bringing to this community is a chance to continue going on after their legacy of coal is over?
Exactly. When that coal plant is shutting down, the ability of this community to keep the young people and still be vibrant is under threat.
Small towns survive when young people like these middle schoolers find hometown jobs and when parents can make a living to support a family. And now Kimmerer can do just that, says Mayor Bill Teck.
You have to move forward or you stagnate and you die. And to me, that's not an option.
With a net worth estimated north of $100 billion, Bill Gates is taking time out for a look back at a most uncommon life. He's talking with Lee Cowan.
Mr. Gates, I'm Dr. Leonard Hofstadter. We've actually met before.
Bill Gates may not strike you as an actor, certainly not a comedic one.
I mean, ever since I was a little kid, I've looked up to you like a hero.
But he can be a funny guy.
Would you like a tissue?
How about a hug?
How about a tissue?
Even when he was arrested at the age of 21, his smile makes you think there was a lot more going on in that head than just computer calculations.
I was driving from Albuquerque up to Seattle and I got 3 very serious speeding tickets.
You got 3?
Yeah.
On that one trip?
On that one trip. Well, it's a long trip.
This is great. I love this little car.
Yeah, these are pretty nice.
We were relieved to learn that the top speed of his all-new, all-electric Fiat Red was only about 100 miles an hour. That car was a birthday gift from Bono. Yep, that Bono, as if there's any other.
Well, we've been working together on this global health stuff for a long time.
These days he's known largely for his philanthropic work, especially on global health issues. To date, the Gates Foundation has given away nearly $80 billion in grants, most of that from Gates and his former wife Melinda's own pocket. But for most of us, he'll always be the Microsoft guy.
This is my last keynote.
Even though he stepped down as CEO a quarter century ago.
The one thing that really held me back was, what if I leave and the company's doing very poorly? A, I'll feel bad, and B, I won't know whether to, jump back in or not. But, fortunately, I've never had to even think about it because my successors have been amazing.
He was the boy wonder, the Harvard dropout who became a billionaire in his 30s by focusing not on building computers, but selling the software that ran them.
Please welcome Bill Gates and the Bill Gates Dancers!
By the time he launched Windows 95, he was on top of the world. He had every right to be dancing to the Rolling Stones and yucking it up with the likes of Jay Leno.
Windows 95 is so easy, even a talk show host can figure it out.
But on this day, as he drove us to his favorite drive-in, Burgermaster, a Seattle institution,
Hey, how's it going?
Great. All right, what can we do to start it for you? Gates seemed less like one of the world's richest men.
For here to go.
What do you think?
For here to be on a tray on the window.
Yeah, we'll do the tray on the window.
Got it.
And more like the kid who just used to come here with his dad. Decades before he'd be calling sports heroes, rock stars, and world dignitaries his friends.
My social skills were very slow to develop. So except for a few boys similar to me, I didn't have that many friends.
He's not saying that for sympathy, he's just being analytical. It's the way his mind works, and it's the way the first of his 3-part autobiography is written.
Here is the setup, the source code that almost certainly was going to lead to some pretty amazing impact.
Bill Gates knew he was different. So did his parents, so did his teachers. Had he been growing up today, he says he likely would have been diagnosed as autistic.
Well, when I'm concentrating, I'll actually sometimes start rocking, which bothers people without my even, sort of being aware of it. So I haven't even outgrown that type of behavior.
Is the rocking kind of a soothing thing? Is it something you just do to concentrate? What do you think
it must be, it's a habit. They did put me on a rocking horse to help me go to sleep. They did put me in a cradle, so it's definitely their fault.
Whether he is or isn't on the spectrum matters little, he says.
Even today, there's not like some magic medicine that gets rid of the bad part and lets you keep the good part.
He writes that his parents took him to therapy, sent him to private school, and tried to unglue him from his books by getting him into sports, like skiing, even football.
I was forced to. Now, that was on, there were 3 teams. There was the varsity, the JV, and then the even below JV. And so we were the lowest tier. And amongst that 3rd tier, I was semi-decent. But that's all that can be said.
Almost everything he viewed through the prism of mathematics.
As you talk about math and being good at math and how that kind of revealed all these hidden structures in life and gave all the chaos of the world a certain amount of order, which, if you're like me, who's not good at math, all I see is sometimes chaos. I don't see the patterns. I don't see the structures.
Well, I think science is a beautiful thing that, physics, chemistry, biology. The more you learn, the more kind of the pieces fit together because all these topics connect.
You're called a genius, and no, I don't think that embarrassed you at all. They call you a genius.
In conversation 40 years ago with our own Jane Pauley, the then William Gates III made it clear he was in charge of his destiny.
I'm used to having a company where the ideas that I have are something that I can easily pursue.
Are you competitive, you think?
Yes, people would say I'm competitive. Yes, definitely. There was an industry panel once where everybody was disagreeing with me, and at the end of the panel, one of the competitors says, look, Bill is wrong. Bill works so much harder than we do. He's going to succeed. We might as well just give in.
You don't get to be part of that 1% club without making a few enemies along the way. He is a complicated guy.
Forcing us to divorce the internet from our operating system would be like requiring one of the automakers to sell cars without car stereos.
Some say he was ruthless in his business practices. And there are plenty of charges that today he's just part of a new American oligarchy.
You write in the book about how you said when you first came here as a freshman that you were like a kid in a candy store. How come?
There were glimpses of his determination even as a freshman at Harvard.
My room was this one here on the first floor.
He almost got kicked out for breaking the rules in the computer lab.
It turned out I'd used by far the most computer time. And so they were like, well, what are you doing? You're an undergraduate. What the heck?
Great to see you.
Yeah, it's impressive you're here.
His computer science professor, Harry Lewis, remembers him well. Years ago, he dug out the original code that Gates started writing over Christmas break in 1974.
This was a work of beauty.
Those pages of basic interpreter code became the Bible of the software revolution. The 69-year-old Gates says he's made plenty of mistakes, including meeting with financier and convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. Although the tabloids had a field day with his divorce, he now says that was one of his life's biggest regrets.
You know, when I was a student, I was just trying to learn a lot. I was very curious.
But for every critic,
how do you decide what to work on as somebody who's gone through many stages of their career?
there are just as many, like these students at Harvard, who speak of Bill Gates in the same breath as Thomas Edison.
Hey, you finished yours. You did well.
That was good.
I almost finished mine.
And I got a double.
That's good.
Like his burger, sometimes Bill Gates has bitten off more than he can chew in his life. Maybe it was a way to challenge himself, even in the face of those who still want to challenge him.
I've been unbelievably lucky and led a very interesting life. It's not stopping.